Welcome back. We're still talking about strings. So strings are a lot like arrays. But there happen to be, because of the terminating null or end zero, a lot of functions that are very helpful. And they're in a library called strings, which we will include right here. And this library has a bunch of functions that, if we're working with strings, turn out to be really useful. So down here, I've got a bunch of strings defined. I've also defined a character array. I want to show you that arrays don't behave like strings. I've also created something which is a little new, and we're not going to use a lot. It's a pointer. Okay? See the star in front of it? That makes this a pointer. Okay? And a pointer is basically an address in memory. In many ways, it acts like a string, but it's only a string that's been created. There's nothing there now until it actually points to something, which is why it's called a pointer. We'll talk about that a little later. Okay, so I want to show you the functions that we have. Okay? Let's build this. Okay? Building. And here's the first function. Okay? This is strlen. It's an abbreviation for string length. It's in the string.h library. Okay? And what it does, it counts the characters up to the null. Can't do this with an array, right? Because an array doesn't have the null. So this just counts all the characters until it hits a null. Okay? So if we go back here, it's going to look at this. It's not going to give me 20. It's not going to give me 19. It's going to count these characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces a character. It's not going to give me 9 for the extra null. Right? This one, when I get the length of it, is going to give me 1600. If I did the length of string 3 here, it would just be 0. There's nothing been assigned to it yet. So let's go and look at what I actually do get for those functions. Okay, like I said, physics inside the brackets, right, has length 8, string 2 is length 4. Okay. Now, down here is another function. What it does is it's short for string concatenation. Concatenate means to bring together. So all it does is it takes whatever string 2 is, the characters at the end of string 2, and they add it to the end of string 1. When I say the end of string 1, it's wherever that null is in string 1. Okay? And here it asks, what's the length of this new string 1? Well, it's going to be longer because I've concatenated these two. There's a third function, which is kind of cool and useful a lot. It's called string copy. And it takes string 1 and copy it into string 3. So string 3 was blank, so whatever string 1 was, I've added it in to string 3. So if I go back to here, you'll see string 1 is physics blank 1600, added together now, which is length 12, and string 3 is now the same as physics 1600. Those three functions, string length, string cat, and string copy, you use an awful lot. And some versions of them as well in the library that you might occasionally find useful. We won't cover every function in that library. Okay. Now, I told you that arrays are different, right? So here I'm trying to find the length of an array. This is string length. That's an array, so that's not really going to work well. And here I'm trying to use printS to print this guy out. Let's see what we get. Hit enter. The first few characters are right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then there's 4 bits of junk here, less than some unprintable character JM. Okay? And the length is 12, which doesn't seem to match the length of this at all. Right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so string length and %s for arrays, they don't work. Don't use them. Okay, so that was arrays. And here, I want to show you something cool. Right? String 1, we said was we've made it to be physics blank 1600. Down here, I'm manipulating string 1. I'm going to the 4th character, and I'm putting in a null. And then I'm saying, so what's the length of string 1? Well, it's going to be shorter because string length counts up to the first null. And when I do %s as a format specifier, it only does out all the characters to the first null. But those characters are still in memory, and you can access them if you need to. So what I'm doing here in a for loop is one by one, I'm printing out the characters in that memory space, just to show you that putting a null in the middle didn't erase the characters that came after it. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. Right? So phys is now length 4 because I had inserted a null at that point. And this is just a spacer, right? There's no character I anymore. It's overwritten by the 0. But I have CS space 1600. All those characters are still stored in memory. The functions can get at them, but we could because we could do it element by element. 2 last functions to look at. Okay? These functions are string char, or string character, and what it does is it finds the first stretch of the string that starts with an N. Okay? Let's look at string 4 again. Go back up and look at string 4. So this is Kwantlen Polytechnic. The first N is right here, right? And what it does is it wants you, or it returns the string that starts with that N, right? The piece that's after that N. Substring, you'll remember I defined as a pointer. That's how this thing works, right? So character substring. And what I'm doing now is this pointer is pointing to the text past the N, right? Just does that. Okay. I've got another version of that function in the strings library. It's string write character, right? And what it does is it finds essentially the last stretch for the last N, because instead of searching from the first element, it searches from the last element and works backward. Okay? So if we find the last N in Polytechnic, right, that's here. Okay, so the characters are pointing to this string or portions of this string. Okay? So they're not separate arrays themselves. Substring is just pointing to parts of this information. And lastly, I said that you can treat substring as if it is a string once you've given it memory. So you can use printS, right? Okay, and so here I'm going to copy 1, 2 to it and now print out what I have. That needs to be a little longer, right? Can't see this very well, right? It's going to print out substring, the first element of substring 0, and what string 4 is. And up here, so that you can see it, it's the string length of substring, right? So string length and %s will work on pointers just as if they were strings, as long as they're pointing at something. If they haven't not pointing at something, they won't work. So let's see what we get. Okay, so piece of Qualm Polytechnic after first n. You see it's, right, so here's the first n. All of this is after the first n. It includes n, right? And the number of characters there is 17, which looks about right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13? Or does it say 17? Let's see what I actually asked for. Substring. Okay. It certainly looks. Let's go up here and see why it's 720, right? Okay. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. String length seems to be doing something odd there. Okay. Okay. So it says it's 17, 2, 6, 10. Oh no, I must have counted. It is 17. Anyway, so that's string chr. The second function is string write chr, and it gives you nick, right? The last n, right? Or the first n it finds moving from this way across. And it has length 3. I've given substring the values 1, 2, right? The first character of the substring is 1. And if I go back to string, because I changed substring, substring is just a pointer in memory to what held Polytechnic, right? So I've overwritten the nick with a 1, 2. We probably won't be playing with strings like that, but it's just a nice way of showing you how functions work with computer memory. That's it for now. Thank you.